It doesn't matter what game you play, be it Apex, Overwatch, League of Legends, or even Dota, we all want to be the highest rank we can be. We all want to be that guy dominating the lobby and climbing the ladder with our squad, but how exactly are some teams able to make it look so easy? Why, when you watch someone like Sweet Dreams or Imperial How, they make the lobby look so bad while they look so good? Well, hello everyone, I'm your hostess with the mostest, 8 Second Gaming, and today I'm going to break down 5 habits that Apex Predators do that your squad doesn't. These are going to cover a wide variety of topics to cover as much as I possibly can and give everyone the best chance at climbing. But just before, if you guys at any point find yourself enjoying this video or finding these tips useful, please remember to drop a thumbs up, it really helps us out. And don't forget to smash that sub button and ring the bell to stay up to date with the latest Apex Legends tips, tricks, and news. But with that covered, let's hop into tip number 1, and that's Preds aren't afraid to take fights. If you watch any team that's in Pred rank, you'll see them be willing to take fights. Sometimes they don't because it isn't a smart one to take, but realizing a bad fight isn't the same as being scared. Don't mix up smart players for scared players. Sometimes there are going to be bad fights you have to take though, being able to push teams off high ground or even just straight up wipe a team that's where you need to go. And you never ever see Pred players back down from those kinds of fights because they know if they don't fight they are dead, and understanding that is key to growing as a player. Now you may be asking yourself, what are the right fights to take and what aren't? And that's going to be something that changes from squad to squad and even game to game. There are so many factors to look into when picking a fight, but I'm going to give you a checklist to run through in your head. Step number 1, identify the targets. What legends are they playing? Can you see them use any abilities, and are they a full team? Step number 2, ask yourself, do we really need to fight this? Step number 3 is, if you said no, look for a new rotation. But if you said yes, then look to see if one is lagging behind the group or they can easily be singled out and killed. Step number 4 is, if they are all together, is there a good target? Legends like Gibby, if you're able to team shot him and kill them before he's able to bubble, you just got a huge ability out of the fight and make it very easy to clean up. And step number 5 is this a safe fight? Before you fire any shots, you have to look at the area you're in. Is it a high traffic spot? Can you end the fight quickly? And what's your escape plan if you get third partied? And now there could be many more things to ask yourself, but those are just some basic ones to run through before fights, and eventually over time you'll be able to pick fights a lot better. You will mess up though, and fights will be bad sometimes, but that's just part of the game and something you'll have to learn to deal with. Tip number 2 is they have an understanding of how every legend works. Every Pred you watch will have their mains. For me personally, I play Bloodhound, that's my main. But I have an understanding of how every single legend in the game functions to the point that I could play them if needed. That information helps me and other top level players in fights because we know exactly how those legends will want to use their abilities in order to fight. And on top of that, you'll be able to play multiple legends in order to best fit your team's playstyle and help them out. I'm going to use myself as an example once again. Like I said, I play Bloodhound, but in pro scrims and tournaments, I play Gibraltar for my team. Those are 2 very different playstyles, but I've been able to learn how to play both over my years in this game. I've been playing since launch and scrimming since season 3, so I've learned a thing or two. The best way to learn this is to pay attention to legends in game or the ones you play with. Over time, you'll see habits they all fall into and be able to leverage those. Alternatively, you can watch guides on other legends you don't even play. That way you'll know the ins and outs of all the legends and know tips for them. Knowing the tips and tricks for that character, you'll be able to reverse engineer and counter them. Now moving on to tip number 3, it's communication. Most up close fights in Apex are very fast paced and can lead to some chaotic calls. But when you're in those moments, you need to be able to get the right amount of information to your team without clogging comms up. And I know that that can sound a little weird, but whenever I watch some people play Apex, they're telling someone's life story in a call out. I don't need to know the names of the dude's kids, his high school GPA, and what kind of return he's getting on his taxes this year. All you need in a call out is 1, how much damage you did, 2, what legend they are playing, 3, where they are or where they're going, and 4, if they used any abilities. Those can be very quick, precise callouts like Wraith 48 blue behind this rock, and then you ping that rock. She didn't use any abilities, so you don't need to call anything out, and this lets your team know that there is a a wraith that has blue armor, has to heal, and is behind a rock. Perfect callouts with the right amount of information every time. Now, tip number 4 is knowing how to use every gun in the game. And what I mean by this is if you drop into game and your teammate needs help, it doesn't matter what gun you've picked up, you know how to control the recoil, even with no attachments, so you can run over and start to help. You are not always going to get your ideal loadout and will be forced to use guns you may not be 100% comfortable on. But top tier Apex Preds know every recoil on guns and can fight no matter what they have. Even leaving your drop spot, you may have terrible RNG and be forced to walk out with an RE45 and a Mozambique. You won't be as eager to fight, but if a team pushes you, you can't just roll over and let them kill you. That's not what Preds do. You fight to your last bullet, pump out as much damage as you can. Even if you don't end up killing them, you at least helped your team a bit and maybe they will be able to clutch up. Crazy things can happen, so know how to use what you've got. And last up, tip number 5 is start understanding enemy lines of sight. Line of sight, or LOS as most people call it, refers to what you can see at any given time. Imagine a cone coming out from your enemy and the width is their FOV. Anything inside that cone they can see and therefore can shoot. Knowing what your enemy can and can't see takes a deep understanding of the map you're on and the character you are playing. All high rank players know maps like they grew up there, all the tiny little details they are aware about and know how to get around extremely efficiently. A huge part of knowing these sightlines is you'll know what angles teams are holding when playing an area. With that knowledge, you will be able to take a new approach to blindside them or potentially throw grenades in order to knock them off those lines. A huge part of starting to understand how these things work is to start mapping out areas in your head. Think, if I were this team, what would I be watching? And then with your mental map, you'll be able to move around and take new angles. Starting to understand this, you will be able to take more power positions in fights, allowing you to deal more damage without taking as much, opening up more opportunities to push and wipe squads. But that's going to be all for today's video though. I hope you guys enjoyed these tips. These tips, when mastered, will give you a huge advantage in fights, allowing you to control the flow of them more and start being an absolute menace in the arenas. These are all things that top tier players have learned over their course of playing Apex, and if you really start to pay attention just a little bit closer to their gameplay, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. They have mastered these tips to the point where most of it is muscle memory. If you start watching some top tier players, you'll know that they don't even think about what they have to do, they just seem to know exactly, and that's because they've drilled these things into their heads to that point. And I just want to add, some of these tips do come easier to some. If you are trying to implement these into your own gameplay and are struggling a bit, don't worry, that happens to everyone at some point. Just keep your head up and continue to work at it. Over time, it will come to you and give you a huge boost at climbing. It took me a long time to really understand how enemy sightlines worked and how to best avoid them, but after a while of really focusing on learning it, I was able to understand, and now it's a huge weapon in my arsenal. And once again though, if you guys found this video useful and want to help out the channel, please do drop a thumbs up, and don't forget to smash that sub button and ring the bell if you haven't done that already. We do daily, highly educational Apex Legends content you do not want to miss out on. Thank you all for watching. Once again, I'm 8 Second Gaming, and I will see you in the next one.